My name is Mike Hyde. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Trainline. Now, Trainline is perhaps not a 200-year-old company, but we're actually a 25-year-old company. We started right back in 1997, selling train tickets over a phone line. And we quickly switched to doing that online as the internet kicked in. And as has been pointed out, we were a digitally native technology-first company. But since then, you may know us as a UK retailer of train tickets, but over the last few years, we've expanded quickly across Europe. We now operate across 40 different countries in Europe, and we connect to almost 300 different rail and coach providers. So we're actually Europe's now leading train and coach app. And the complexity of that means that we're constantly bringing in data feeds of things like ticket prices, timetable, availability, information about late running of services, and so on. So it's a very complicated infrastructure at the back end, and our role is really to make that simple and beautiful in terms of how you can buy your tickets. We're a tech company. We're a digitally native company. We're about 1,000 people, and most of those people work in engineering or product. So we build for the digital world, first of all. And business has been going well. The expansion into Europe is interesting. If you've traveled by train in Europe recently, there's an incredible golden era, really, of rail in Europe with new capacity and new rail operators, high-speed lines popping up all across Europe. But despite all of that growth, the world in which we operate and the ecosystem in which we operate is beginning to change. And that is creating some challenge for us as we rethink about how we operate in the future. The AI revolution is picking up enormous speed in our world, and it's fundamentally changing how people get things done online, how they fundamentally access the internet, how they find information, how they get things done. And new habits and new behaviors are starting to emerge, and that is starting to get real. And with that comes, opportunities, but also threats to every business, including ours. New business models are coming online, new competitors are appearing all the time, and as I say, how the online ecosystem itself is starting to change. So what does that mean for a company like us? Well, we've stepped back from this and asked ourselves, what would it take to become an AI-first organization? How can we harness this latest advances in technology to think about how we change what we deliver for our customer so that we can answer that challenge, reinforce our leadership as an organization, and actually, ensure that we have a defensive moat as we go into this next era of large-scale technology change. But what does it mean to be an AI-first organization? This sounds great. Everyone would probably like the sound of that. But in practice, what does that really mean? Well, let me share a bit about the story we've been on over the last year. It really started with getting leadership alignment. We've got to start right at the top of the organization. And honestly, if you wind the clock back about a year or so from now, there was a lot of concerns, a lot of uncertainties around how this AI technology was going to unfold. There's uncertainty about how much it would cost, how effective it would be in real business use cases, whether you could trust it, and the kind of skills you would need inside an organization to make that work. But we took a view of kind of taking some collective courage as a leadership team to bet that this is the way that the world was going to go, and that this technology was, in fact, many of those concerns were going to solve themselves over the years to come. And we can see that that is indeed playing out. The cost is plummeting, the controllability and the deployability, if you like, is really starting to change. So that was our initial first move. The way we think about our technology stack and our data stack is also starting to change. What does it mean to be an AI-ready organization? Well, one of the things I've been focusing on is bringing together our data infrastructure and our technology infrastructure and starting to think of that as one piece. I think for a long time, in a lot of organizations, the data infrastructure has started to transition from being something which was originally there to do reporting and analysis and is now increasingly used for much more intelligent purposes, like driving experiences and features in production. And I think an AI-based future accelerates that even more. So we're starting to think about our technology platform and our data platform coming together in one thing with really generative AI as in some ways, the connective tissue between those two worlds. Another big consideration we had early on was around privacy and around data governance and around security. Now, we're imagining a world where we can build smart, intelligent, AI-powered experiences which will help you on your train journey, for example. But in order to build the kind of things I'm imagining, the system would need to know quite a lot of things. It would need to know not just the ticket you've bought, but like where you physically are. How are you moving through that journey? What does it take to get to your destination? And how have you moved through that journey in the past to understand the patterns and predict the future? And these are quite personal pieces of data. And so in order to build the trust that we would need with customers as we go down this journey, we took the decision early on to try and build everything we needed inside our own domain, not just to send data out to a third-party API call, but actually to build an architecture which would allow us to keep the data inside of our domain, give us that control and flexibility, whilst at the same time accessing the latest technology and the latest models. And we've worked with AWS to come up with what we think is a very cool architecture that finds that sweet spot between control and accessing the latest tools. So we've built on top of Bedrock, and we're using guardrails as a product to help us as we roll out that piece. And the third thing that we've thought about is how do we work with our teams? How do we get things done? How do we operate? And what do we deliver to our customers? Now, we've started with deliberately building very small teams with cross-functional skills inside, which are empowered to experiment and to move very fast. The playbook for how you do this stuff as a company, it has not been written, right? I mean, we're all learning this as we go, and so we pretty quickly decided that what we needed was to adopt an experimentation and learn by doing approach. And so to do that, we've had to bring together quite a wide range of different skills, but deliberately put them into small teams so that they can move fast, and really with a focus on not spending too long theorizing, but actually building things and getting things in front of customers as quickly as we can, because that is how we will learn. The only tension point with that to note is that when you're building AI-powered features for your customers, you've got to be careful where the edges of those experiences lie, right? When you may have had these experiences in some of the earlier generation of products. If you're sort of typing with natural language, you can hit the edge of that experience or that product, and that can be an unhappy moment for a customer. So that's kind of a counterpoint. We had to think hard about how do we ensure that even in version 1, what we build delights most people most of the time, because you don't want to start off by creating a bad impression too widely. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But let me show you what we've done. This is an example of one of the products we're working on. This is the Trainline AI-powered smart assistant that we've just recently rolled out and we're starting to test. It's a multi-agentic framework. It's fully built inside of our own architecture with full control over the data and the privacy associated with it. We're scaling it out. It's currently in the hands of about 1 million users in the UK. As I say, it's built on Amazon Connect and Bedrock, and we're gradually adding more skills and capabilities to it. We think of this as much more than just a chatbot, because you start off with being able to talk to it about general information about train travel, but actually it's got a lot more context and a lot more personalizable capability. It understands the ticket you've bought, and it understands the ticket policies and rules as they apply to the ticket that you're holding in your hand. You can also ask it about real-time information connected to the train that you are physically on at the time. And beyond just giving you information, it can also get things done on your behalf. So the first version of this is that it can process a refund for the user and actually process the full transaction and put the money back in their account without any human being needing to take part in it. So we're just getting going with this, and we're excited about all of the new capabilities that we can build on this in the future. So far, it's powered about 15,000 conversations. It handles the full user request most of the time, about 9 times out of 10. And it's pretty quick. It responds faster than our traditional human-powered chat channels. But all of these metrics, to be honest, we think we can improve on. There's headroom. And as we make the system smarter and it matures more, we think we can dial up all of these results. So stepping back a little bit, look, this is early days, I think, for all of us as we start to think about how AI is impacting everything we do, not just the products we build that we've talked about, but other parts of our organization as well. But there's really encouraging signals. We've been seeing AI starting to be used now all across other departments across Trainline. So things like the marketing department, HR department, finance, there's more and more creative use cases coming out in terms of how people are using these tools to get things done. We're also seeing the culture shift that goes with that. It's really starting to become a pull, not a push. So people inside of those teams are inventing themselves. They're coming up with interesting, innovative use cases of how they can automate their work, how they can extend it to be more effective in their teams. And that's just starting to happen organically now, which is great to see. And finally, we're talking to customers, obviously, through our new AI agents, but also very interesting conversations with our partners, both in the travel industry and the wider technology ecosystem. I do think that the future sort of digital ecosystem is really being built right now, which I think is very interesting. So if I just step back and wrap up by sharing with you 2 or 3 reflections that we've learned so far on this journey. I think the first one is to acknowledge that there is some risk associated with going down this path. And I would encourage you all to think about intentionally leaning into some of that risk and think about how to manage it, think about what it means for your business. But I do think there's a danger that not being prepared to take any risk in this space, there's a great danger that you get left behind and that you're not involved. So I think intentionally taking risk is kind of part of it. My second point is a learning that we had along the way: remove the noise. Right? One of the things we found is that as we deployed AI tools inside our business, they benefit greatly from having a cleaner environment to play in, just like a new employee. So take the time to clean up your data warehouse, get your metrics in great shape, clean up your document management system, get rid of all the old pages on your intranet. These AI tools will do a much better job when they've got a higher quality environment to work within, just like we all do, really. And finally, I just want to emphasize again, I really do think now is the time to act on this stuff. The underlying technology and the foundational research which is going on in these frontier AI organizations is moving very fast. Like, it's not slowing down, it's still moving at extraordinary pace. But there is already more than enough capability now on the shelf for most businesses to take that and start delivering extraordinary and differentiated experiences in front of their customers. So I do think now is the time to shift from theorizing to action, to actually start trying things out, implementing things, and testing them for real in front of your customers and your partners. I strongly believe that what we do in the next year is going to impact our trajectory over the next several years to come. So now is the time. Let's go and build the future, and I honestly think that the future is in all of our hands right now. Thank you very much.